Hi, it's Denny Somack. I'm a rock historian, producer, and best-selling author, and this is the number one podcast for classic rock, The Rock Podcast. Now, before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free, no charge. You'll be notified when a new episode is released and have access to previous episodes you may want to listen to. We have a unique guest on this episode. His name is Garry Shrum from Heritage Auctions, one of the world's major auction houses. Now, he is the director of entertainment and multimedia. He specializes in music memorabilia, autographs, vintage guitars, and items like that. I wanted to have him on to discuss the various rock memorabilia auctions that they conduct, what kind of items show up, how he obtains them, and a little background in case you're interested in participating. I know you'll find this interesting. It's an exclusive interview on The Rock Podcast. So, welcome. My guest today is Garry Shrum, and he is the Director, Entertainment and Music Memorabilia for Heritage Auctions. I'll just tell people a little bit. Heritage Auctions is the largest auctioneer and third largest auction house in the world, as well as the largest in the United States. And you were founded in the U.S. What year did the place start, the business?
They started back in the 70s with coins and continued to grow and add departments. And now we're close to 50 different divisions in our new location in Dallas. But we have, offices all over the world now, from Japan to Hong Kong to Amsterdam to Brussels and, of course, in New York and Chicago and Beverly Hills, and here our main office here in Dallas.
How many years have you been with Heritage?
You know what? I'm celebrating 20 years this Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, they're going to give me my 20-year pin or whatever you want to call it this Friday. I started on the 4th of November as a full-timer back in '04.
So it will be a
So,
collectible pin?
and I hope so, maybe like this. No, it'll be something really nice. I just said pin, but they give us nice gifts every 5 years.
Okay,
So
so
I'm excited about that. We have our Christmas party and
yeah,
people get their 5 year certificates and 10 years and 15 and 20 and 30 and 35. And
right.
so that's good.
Okay. Well, we're going to talk a full disclosure. I have a bunch of items in the current auction that's just ending, and I guess I'm going to have some more in the upcoming. Is it February, March? I think you told me.
The catalog will come out in March and the auction will end in April. So it'll be up for 3 weeks for auction. People can go on our website and stuff will start popping up in February. So
Okay.
people can start looking at things that'll be coming up in the whole auction. And it's going to be you know, all kinds of different things as you had in your collection that you brought to us to auction. The
Right.
whole auction will have various, Beatles and Stones and Hendrix and anything that we can get our hands on that we think is a collectible item. And we hope there's more Led Zeppelin stuff shows up, but Led Zeppelin is not the easiest band to find collectibles on, as a lot of people know. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it?
Yeah, before we get to that, though, I want you to just briefly explain what happens at an auction like yours. And is it better to go online, use the catalog? But just explain to people who have never really participated, other than maybe, bid on some things. How does an auction work?
Well, auction works like this. We bring in all the goodies for the next auction. We go through it. We take photos. We do descriptions, research, and it gets listed online. At one point, when we have everything full and we close the auction for any new items, we make our catalog. Catalogs get sent out, and then people can look through it. Catalog, I feel, is like a table of contents, and then they can go online and get more images, more information, go up, zoom in on a corner of, hey, there's where in the corner of this record, take a look.
Yeah.
And we're very transparent on everything that we put up for auction. And people time. There may be an opening bid of say $500, and then they can put their bid in at 525 or 550, and then it starts. People come in and see that bid, and they'll no, I want that, and they'll bid on that, and they'll bid. But most of the bidding, I'd say 60 to 70% of the bidding is done the last 2 days, especially the last day.
Okay. So aside from autographs by Led Zeppelin, which include John Bonham, what are the most collectible Zeppelin items?
I'd say anything owned, touched, or very important representation of their career. So I'd say, clothing from here's a concert in Japan, and here's that jacket that Jimmy was wearing without a shirt. People would just be crazy for that. Or something like Robert Plant's microphone from Earl's Court. That's the really one of a kind, bizarre stuff that people really love to get a hold of. But going down the list, handbills and concert posters have just really taken off. If you've been watching our auctions, there's
Yeah.
been some really interesting things coming up, and a lot of people think, "Oh gosh, it's a poster. There's got to be a lot of them out there." Not so. For a lot of the venues, they didn't need to make a lot of posters because they were going to sell out anyway. And so there'd be, 25, 50 posters made for the ticket agencies and just to promote in maybe a restaurant around town or a record store or something like that. And then you get into stuff connected with the record label, like contracts, signed contracts, gold awards, uh, tour jackets from different tours, props. That's very hard to find. And with Zeppelin, I don't know why a lot of stuff didn't stand the test of time, but they just don't show up as much as other bands do.
Right. How do you go about finding items like for Zeppelin? Do collectors call you? Do you reach out? You know,
All the above. We do ads in Record Collector Magazine, Gold Mine Magazine, different other guitar magazines, different social media, just promoting ourselves all the time at conventions. Like I do different rock and roll conventions, like the Austin Record Fair is twice a year. We try to always do that. I've been doing that since '84, long before I came with Heritage.
right.
And then we have people that call us because of our ads or because of our reputation. I mean, you can go on internet and say, autographed Jimi Hendrix record or autographed Beatles or autographed Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
and our name will come up that we've sold it, and here's what we've got. I mean, we had a collection when Steve Weiss, the lawyer for Swan Song, passed away.
Right.
We had his collection, and that was just, got us a lot of great buyers at the time. And here was a lot of that stuff that I was just talking about, hard to find things, his personal awards. He had worked for Jimi Hendrix as well, and he had a Jimi Hendrix vest that
Huh.
Jimmy had gifted him because he just commented in the back of a show one time, "Man, that's a great vest." And Jimmy just took it off and gave it to him. "Man, here you have it."
Huh.
So ways of getting stuff is always unique. It could be somebody that's passed that was, connected with the band, like a tour manager or somebody that worked at the label, and they Google us or they've heard about us, or the person possibly was a collector and was buying from us to begin with, and they came up with one of our receipts with the piece, and they contact us again to resell it a second time in an auction.
What about instruments, guitars, things like that?
That's the we always pray for. We've had some really great. The thing that shows up the most is signed guitars. Then somebody will get in backstage,
Right.
some DJ, and Jimmy will sign it, or Robert will sign it. When Robert and Jimmy toured on their tour together, there was a lot of guitars that showed up from that particular tour because there was a lot of greet and meets in the afternoon.
Right.
And we've had some of those in auction that have done real well. But you once in a while you see all three of them on a guitar. generally they're gotten separately because they're very rarely all together.
Right.
And so, it's tough getting all four signatures on a guitar. That's tough. Getting actually one of Jimmy Page's guitars to sell would be heaven. He's kept all his stuff tied to his chest, and he's a collector too. I mean, he hits the record fairs and he looks for blue 78s and old Zeppelin things that he hasn't seen before, and good for him.
Has he ever called you to ask if you had something?
No, no, he hasn't. Most of the time, you don't even know that they call. It's somebody that calls for them because they don't want the publicity and they don't want things to get out. And of course, they don't. Well, he knows it's me that the price will be higher. And I don't blame him.
Yeah.
So
So,
we have.
yeah, yeah, okay. I was going to ask you, so have you sold a Zeppelin guitar and what did you
No,
get for it? No, you never have.
not yet. We've sold some of the limited editions that were put out, and they've done very well in auction. They're on everything that we've sold by Led Zeppelin. You can go on our website of past auctions and just put Led Zeppelin in and walk through all the stuff that we sold all the way back to the beginnings of the music department.
Right.
And back then in the early 2000s, things weren't going for as much as they're going for now. So you go in there and go, only $600? What's up with that? But that would be thousands now. True. It's just people in the last 15, 20 years have really got educated on how rare this stuff is and what's out there. And they find out how they start looking hard and they don't find anything. So when it comes up, you got to go after it and grab it because you might not see it again.
What's about the object? For those that don't know, it's that black obelisk, is that what you would call it? That's on the
Yeah,
cover of
it's from the
Presents.
cover of Presents.
Is that sought after? What does that go
Oh,
for?
that's really desirable. We had one that was still sealed. I can't believe that after all these years that with the curiosity wasn't strong enough to open that box.
Right,
But we had to open it here just to make sure it was intact and that it wasn't, there was something in there than just weight.
right.
And so we filmed it, put it online, and it sold very well. I'd have to look that up. I don't have the number in my head, but I think it was around 12 to 15,000 that it went for.
How
And
many
we've
years
had other
ago?
ones.
How many years
Pardon?
ago was that? How many years ago?
Oh, year and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, recently. But they don't show up as often as you'd sure like them to.
Yeah.
But
Good.
that's a great piece, and that's one of the things that they did make in a small quantity and number them, and they went out to the important record stores, the chains, different writers for magazine. I'm sure some of the main writers for Rolling Stone each got one, and Cream magazine.
I got
And
one. I actually
did you
got
get one?
two. I sold one years ago. Shouldn't have sold it, but anyway.
Yeah, well, who knew where the music prices were going to go? We just
Right.
were making all the time here at Heritage. We're breaking records every auction with concert posters, or we just had some artwork for Elton John's Captain Fantastic Brown Dirt Cowboy, and that went 212,000. And it's just remarkable that the stuff shows up, and a lot of people have learned that when it shows up, you better grab it because it's one of a kind in a lot of cases, like this piece was, and like a lot of the concert posters and handbills we had a one handbill that was made up, and by the time the concert was getting closer, it wasn't going to be the new Yardbirds, it was going to be Led Zeppelin, and they crossed it out and wrote it in. And that stuff like that is just so cool, and it dates it so well because you got your date on the handbill or poster, you know when it was. And in a lot of cases, people are trying to hunt down. I went to that concert when I was in 11th grade. I really liked the poster from that show. And that's where we get some aggressive bidding on some posters. Sometimes people go, what's going on here? They've never seen it sell for that much. Well, maybe you've got somebody that this was a song of their wedding, or
Right.
this was the song when they graduated high school, or it was just the first concert they ever went to.
What about audio and video and early demos and things like that? Do they come up and
Not very often. That's more of in a private market because of copyright. if we can't go and sell a lot of this stuff because it's copyrighted when you get that type of thing. And we've had some master reels that were discarded from the record label and stuff like that from different bands. One time we had almost every Beatle master reel when they shut down Capitol in Mexico.
Right.
And somebody brought us all the reels, and I said, "Gosh, yeah, that's fantastic." But the problem is with that, most people don't have the equipment to play 15 IPS. So just knock your socks off for quality, as you know.
Yeah. Wow. So sometimes, though, you actually work with an artist who's looking to sell some of his personal collection. Who's some of the people that you've worked with, or their estates come to you?
Yeah, all the above. I think one of the most interesting ones we did recently was Neil Sean. Neil contacted us. It was during COVID. He had an insane amount of guitars in his collection, and we did an auction with him. And when we went to visit with him at the warehouse, to pick out the guitars, and he was showing us what he was willing to let go. Um, we brought a cameraman with him. He said, "Man, we want to, get a picture with you with some of the guitars. That would just be so
Right.
cool for the people bidding on them. It's just a good idea, and maybe you can tell the story." All day long, he told stories almost every guitar. We expected, maybe four or five, and I think he did over 60.
Right.
And so we had a ball with him. He was just a great guy, great storyteller, and just loved what he's doing, loved where he'd been because he started so early at 16 with Santana. And we had one of his guitars from that period and had some important guitars that he used writing some important songs for Journey. So he was just terrific to work with. Then I got to work with Maria Elena Holly with her Buddy Holly collection. Oh gosh, it's got to be back over 20 years now when we did the first Buddy Holly auction. She was a blast because she had all kinds of great stories to tell about what was going on. Though they were only married for a short period, she had them all down in her brain, and they were just great to hear. And you know, s- some stuff that I can't even tell over the radio, unfortunately. But you and I maybe sometime can sit down and I'll share some of them with you.
Okay.
I would say, those two have been the most fun to work with. Oh, Graham Nash. Graham was unbelievable. He drove out his guitar collection with his road manager from LA to Dallas straight. Never broke. He drove the whole way. And he got here. He says, "Man, I had no idea there were so many stars in the sky when we got to New Mexico. Unbelievable." He was just so excited about the whole adventure. And he collected important guitars that were played by different important people. He had a guitar that was used on the bus when the last tour with Buddy Holly. So it went through everybody's hands on the bus playing it. He had one of the Everly Brothers guitars. He had a Bo Diddley guitar. He had several guitars from Stephen Stills. But the crown of the collection was the Duane Allman guitar he had, and that went for almost 600,000 in auction. And he was here and he talked about all the guitars that he collected, why he picked them up, and just had a real passion. He had some of his guitars, a couple from the Hollies, and some we had his Woodstock guitar. That was very, very important to have. He had when they got signed, he used the money that they got signed with. Him and David went and bought brand new Martin guitars.
Right.
And so, yeah, he'd have to be at the top of the list for having a great time with an individual and stories and his personality, as you've seen him in interviews and stuff. It's just the way he is. It's just the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah. Right. He is. So, what happens when a member of a group passes away? Does it automatically increase the value? Let's say, obviously, the three Zeppelin guys are still around, and Bonham, that was a long time ago. But when one of them does pass, what will happen to the value of Led Zeppelin items?
Well, it definitely increases depending on the importance of the member and the band. Now, if it's the first drummer from a band that was from 20 years ago has passed away, his drum kit's not going to be near as valuable that somebody who was currently playing drums for a big band. And then guitars, again, much better. And I'll get back. Don't remind me to tell you about a drum head that we have coming up in auction.
Okay.
So when people pass away, it could be a sister or a brother or a parent or a son or daughter that contacts us. And if they have handwritten lyrics, they're very important. And but the value right after a death, whether it be Prince or Tom Petty or Eddie Van Halen, really goes up for quite a while.
And then it
But
starts to decline. I mean, I
in,
noticed
in
the petty stuff has gone down a bit.
yeah, and that saddens me because Eddie was so important to the music of the 80s, especially into the 70s,
Van
80s.
Halen, yeah.
That was the band. They said so many bands were on their short tails getting famous because they brought hard rock to the forefront and did it so well.
Hmm. Have you sold some Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen guitars?
Yeah, we definitely have sold some in the different memorabilia and gold records and some autographs. Autographs definitely went. Autographs, I think, of all the items when somebody passes, I think they're the most desirable right away. You'll see a price, they probably go up 60 to 70% on the value of the autograph because obviously you
Right.
can't get his autograph anymore. Look with the Stones. You can get the Stones, but it's not going to be with Charlie anymore.
Right.
Charlie was, square one from the beginning. So that's always important after we lose somebody, and people take notice because, man, I thought he was going to live forever. Look when we lost Jeff Beck. I mean, everybody was in shock. They go, wait a minute, he was just on tour. How can this be? Same with Eddie Vedder. I mean, excuse me, not Eddie Vedder. Excuse me. Um, with who I'm trying to think of. I think we'll have to cut that part out.
That recent, somebody recently, or
Um, I straight away from my
okay,
thought.
not a problem. Not a problem.
But yeah, anybody that's a surprise. Oh, it's Tom Petty. That's where I was going. Tom, I mean, that was a huge surprise, and it just hurt music in general. I mean, gosh, he was so important, and then being in the traveling Wilburys and
Right.
very important.
Okay. So are there anything in particular, other than the things you mentioned about Zeppelin and some that you haven't seen, you've heard about, and you'd like to find?
Oh, handwritten lyrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that handwritten lyrics are really kept close. I mean, we just did the big Gordon Lightfoot auction, did 1,300,000, which is very successful. And of course, the first thing that came out of my mouth when I got up to Toronto, is there any handwritten lyrics?
Yeah.
And nope, the record label had all that, and probably will remain in a safe somewhere or go on display somewhere because he was the guy in Canada for many decades. That was, they're Bob Dylan.
Right. So is Dylan still very collectible?
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Bob is such a character, and you look at the amount of songs that this man has written.
Right.
It just goes on and on and on. But to get lyrics from an important song from Bob, it's got to go into the six figures easy or more. And when that kind of stuff gets let go, it'll be interesting to see where it goes to.
Now, with that as an example, when something goes in the six-figure range, what's the the profile of that person? Is it an executive? Is it someone from the music business? Just a wealthy collector? Is there any kind of a profile of people that bid on those things?
Yeah, that's a really good question because in some cases we just have names. We don't know their background, and the name could be a manager that's bidding for somebody famous that we will never know. But in cases that we do know, it's a lot of the big famous names that have a lot of money, and I have to keep it confidential on who our bidders are. But a lot of our bidders are like, oh, really? Really? He's into music? Well, why not? Everybody's into music almost.
Yeah.
And so we get all kinds of interesting people from all walks of life. It could be somebody from Saudi Arabia, or it could be some Japanese businessman, or it could be some executive from one of the major labels that's still picking up, bands that were on his label, and he sees something he'd like to have that he could have had it years ago, but just didn't take it seriously enough to realize that, hey, down the road, this is going to be an impossible item to find, even just a gold record or a signed album because people pass away. Look at
So,
Electra with Jim Morrison. Who knew we would lose Jim Morrison at 27,
right.
and all the stuff that they didn't do and didn't have and didn't keep. And I've got some. When we ever talk about the Doors, I have lots of really great Doors stories
Okay.
that'll just make you cry.
Yeah, I can imagine. So just to remind people, your web address, where they can find you.
HA.com, and you can come there and you can see entertainment and go into music. We have a Hollywood section, and we have all the different departments for collecting collectible cards, sports, jewelry, rare comic books and comic art. And of course, coins is our really big thing. But right now, our big thing is entertainment.
How do you authenticate things?
Well, first we where it's coming from, the story behind it. That's what opens the door with us to see if we even want to go there. There are really good autograph authenticators that we use, Beckett and PSA DNA, and that's their livelihood. And they have lots of great exemplars to put things against for different periods of time. Because as people get older and more famous, they would change their autographs. Stevie Ray's autograph when he was young wasn't so beautiful. Later on, he's like the top dog for as a beautiful autograph. Him and Marilyn Monroe, they're just stunning. So people can take it to a authenticator and get it authenticated. They'll give them a letter of provenance, letter of authentication, and we take this in and we display that on our website and let people know it's been tested and checked and it's the real deal. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of autographs that do come to us that are secretarial, which was, the more famous you were. Uh, Beatles had a lot of secretarial autographs. Mel Evans and Neil Aspinall, all, starting with 64, they were so famous they just couldn't sign everything, so they started signing for me. Neil Aspinall, especially, was very good, and so you have to have experts to check those out. And then also you've got people that would just be with the band roadies and stuff that would sign for the band, because rather than give a blank album cover back or missing one or two autographs of the band, people would fill it all in, girlfriends and roadies. I witnessed that backstage many times through the years, and you probably did as well. And then you've got the other guys out there that are forgers. And those are the people we really despise and hate. They hurt the hobby, but that's why we have the authenticators, so they can go through and spot these guys, and we can weed that stuff out of the system.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got a lot of stuff to do, but I appreciate it. And we'll
Oh
do
yeah,
do a part two
anytime.
sometime.
Yeah, or anybody else. There's all kinds of important people out there that need to be talked about.
Right.
And
Oh yeah, I
and
could spend the whole afternoon talking to you.
yeah, well, we can do that sometime. Let's do it. We're not getting any younger.
Right. My thanks to Garry Shrum of Heritage Auctions. If you're listening to the audio only version, I want you to know we have a video version on YouTube, and it's all free, no charge. If you go to the video version, you can see many of the items we discussed, including some Led Zeppelin memorabilia. As always, thanks for joining us and helping us to become the #1 podcast for classic rock. Find us at our website, roll4, grownups.com. Get in touch. I'm Denny Somack. Look for the next episode of The Rock Podcast.